Well, hi there. It is Thursday, and it is not a clinic Thursday. It is a regular, ordinary, everyday Thursday that's not punctuated by a trip to Duarte and the City of Hope. It is September the 5th. The 12th is when we head out to City of Hope again. And it is journal number 160, and it truly is T+160, or 156 rather. I say that with such authority, and then I have to go back and recheck. Sometimes things can get really screwed up. What can I tell you? Today was an interesting day. They're all interesting, especially when you realize that they're all a gift. And this one was punctuated by a trip out to Woodland Hills, which is not all that terribly far from where we live, with the exception of the fact that there's always traffic on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, and that makes the trip far longer than it might otherwise have to be. But you get used to it. I mean, if that's where you got to go, that's where you got to go, and you deal with the traffic. We were going to see our dermatologist, the dermatologist that both Leslie and I go to, and I was going to go along so that I could make an appointment, because I haven't seen her since a few months before I went into treatment. I did see a dermatologist while I was at the City of Hope, but that was for other stuff. So I'm due for a full body scan. If you don't go for regular checkups, dermatological checkups, please consider doing it. It's really important. I know of too many instances where people that we've known have not done that, and they've paid a really serious price for it overall. But we went out there, and something really interesting happened. Disconcerting, interesting, fascinating, interesting, just plain interesting, I guess. And now we've been going to this dermatologist for before she was pregnant with her oldest child, who is now a junior in high school. So you can do the math and figure that out. So it's close to 20 years. And when I went to see her, albeit wearing gloves, a mask, and my big floppy hat, she actually didn't recognize me, which I found fascinating. I mean, we've been going to her for that long. I go to her, my daughter goes to her, my wife goes to her, our son goes to her. I mean, the whole family goes there, so she knows all of us quite well and over a very long period of time, but she didn't recognize me. I'm not the most easily discernible fellow with the mask and gloves and everything else on. However, having said that, I know what I look like. I mean, but the first thing that she said was, I didn't recognize you with the mask and gloves, but you've lost so much weight. I didn't put those things together. And, I realized that she's used to seeing me at 180 to 185 pounds, and I'm lucky if I can crease 160 now. And that, that 20 pounds has got to make a big difference in the way that you look. And then I started to realize there are other things that have changed about my appearance that I'm not necessarily aware of on a regular, everyday, constant kind of a basis. The hair that you see up here, these dark bands on both sides. Well, hair never grew there before. I mean, I used to trim my beard all the way down here, and this hair up here on the top was never there, let alone coming in darker. Most of the time, I don't think you can see it, but there's fuzz on the top of my head. I wish I could figure out what kind of fertilizer to use on this stuff so that it would grow faster and it would be thicker. But it appears that I'm actually starting to grow hair on the top of my head where there hasn't been any hair for a very long time. Well, realistically, this doesn't bother me all the time because I can't see the top of my head because of where my eyes are. So unless I'm walking past a mirror and I'm not all that vain that I wind up looking in mirrors all the time, being bald is something that I just took for granted because my dad's always been bald. I have pictures of my dad when he was in his middle 20s, when he was already losing his hair. And I had no I had no illusions about whether or not I was going to have a full head of hair, which I had hoped would happen, but hope is not necessarily a strategy, so we all know how that worked out. However, now that I got somebody else's DNA coursing around my body, it appears that my Israeli really likes the idea of warmth on the top of my head, so he's trying like hell to grow hair there. But she couldn't see that because the hat was on. So, I mean, I thought that was all kind of interesting, maybe a little bit amusing. The fact that she couldn't necessarily figure out who I was until I told her. And then I started thinking about, you're going to love this segue. Then I started thinking about not only how you appear to others visually, but how this transformation that I've been through and that I'm going through affects you internally. You know, how you see yourself. And the question occurred to me in one of those lightning flash moments. Would you recognize yourself based upon who you are, who you've become, how this transformation, this transition that you've been through has changed your life and your worldview? And the answer is, I think I would. I think I would recognize me in all of this. I think that the basic core of who I am, my values, my beliefs, my principles, have all stayed the same. If anything, they've probably been clarified to the degree they're actually larger than they were before. They're more deeply held. They're more likely to frame future behaviors. And that's an interesting kind of reality to contemplate. That's really something to think about. And I think it actually falls in line with a couple of the other more recent blog posts where you're searching for that sense of self and what that's all about. I know I'm working diligently to do that myself. And the other part of that, I think, is that sometimes people get the idea that you're somehow more than you were and somehow more than you are. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Am I courageous? I don't think of myself as being particularly courageous. I had the easiest part of the whole job when it came to getting me through this. All I had to do was stay alive. Leslie did all the heavy lifting in making sure that I was taken care of and that she was taking care of me. And that was a lot. The doctors and the nurses did their share, and that was a lot. We all worked hard. Was there a lot of courage involved on my part for getting through it? Maybe making that first decision to go ahead with the transplant. But considering the alternative, it didn't seem all that difficult a decision. I think all of these questions are valid, and I think that perhaps to a large degree we try really hard to avoid them more than we should. I think that we should engage in this inner dialogue more often to figure out not only who we were and who we are at the moment, but who we aspire to be as well, so that at some point in the future you can actually move in that direction and become that person that you're striving so hard to become, somebody that you can be proud of, somebody that other people will look up to and be proud of as well. And that's personally, that's professionally, that's as a part of a family, being a family member, friends and family, combined, all of the above. So this is the new me, so take a good look in case we ever meet on the street. You'll recognize me and you won't say, I didn't recognize you, because that'll start another whole different blog post. And if you're tired of listening to stuff like that, that'd be the greatest way to avoid it. Just tell me that I look great for somebody who's been through what I've been through. And I'll accept that compliment gratefully and sincerely and with a deep appreciation. In the meantime, stay well, take care. Take care of yourselves. I'll be back again tomorrow, and we can talk some more.